All right. Welcome, everyone, to our workshop this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. My name is Chris Stevens. I'm joined by my colleague, Kay Kunda, and we are career coaches. We work with a nonprofit organization called Career Catchers. We're located in Montgomery County, and we provide individualized career coaching services. So glad to be here today, and a big thanks to the Ignite Hub at Montgomery College for hosting us. Today, we're going to talk about employability and transferable skills. And, I do want this to be a little bit of an interactive discussion. So, I'll be asking questions, and as we move throughout the presentation, please feel free to share your own questions or comments in the chat, and we will, address those as we go through. So, employability and transferable skills. I want to start off by asking everyone watching right now, what's a skill? Maybe if you could put it in the chat, what's a skill that you have? Could be anything. Doesn't have to be related to IT, although that's what we're going to be targeting our presentation towards today. So what's a skill that you have? Take a minute, think about it. Everyone's got some.
Your question is, what skill do you have, or what is a skill?
What skills do you have?
Oh, okay.
If you want to say what a skill is, that's fine too. We'll get to that. But hi.
Go ahead. Hey, welcome.
Okay.
Well, I'll start. I'll write. So
Go ahead.
I have few skills. I have technical skills, troubleshooting skills. I have communication skills. I have public speaking skills. So some of skills.
Absolutely. Those are all great skills, and I like how you described both sort of technical skills as well as things like communication skills as well. Both hard and soft skills as we'll get to. There we go. So very simply, a skill is an ability to perform an action, right? In order to do something, you have to know how to do it. And you have to, be able to actually do it. Now, when we talk about skills, we hear a lot of different things that, to describe it. Employability skills, key skills, life skills, basic skills, right? Soft skills, hard skills, transferable skills. We've all heard that. All similar, but they mean a little. All of these mean slightly different things. So, what we're focusing on today is transferable skills. But overall, as we're kind of thinking about the skills, they can be categorized into three primary types. Basic skills are something that everyone has. It's things like literacy, right? Being able to do basic math, basic computer skills. Anyone who's logged on to Zoom for this workshop has those basic digital skills. These are the things that you need in order to get a job and sort of be successful, right? And then we talk about vocational or technical skills, and these are a little more advanced, right? So depending on sort of what industry you're in, what field, what experience you've had, everyone's going to have different technical skills, right? So they're specific to certain industries, and they may or may not be able to be transferred, between industries. So, for instance, if you're a good cook and you're trying to enter the, let's say, the IT field, the cyber field, cooking may not translate, directly into a technical skill for cyber. Now, if you are a cook, you're going to have other skills that you can transfer in, but we'll get to that. But learning sort of knowing Java and knowing how to cook are two sort of distinctly separate skills, and they each apply to a different field. So what we also have is essential skills, and this is where maybe you start out as a cook and you're trying to start a career in cyber, in IT. Here are the skills that you can take from one to another, right? These are skills that everyone needs sort of in everyday life and to do any job, and they can be applied to a wide range of different situations at work and in life. Again, I want to ask anyone who's watching on Zoom, what are some of these skills maybe? What are some skills that you think might be able to transfer from, you know, one industry to another? Go ahead. Customer service, absolutely. No matter what field you're in, you're going to be interacting with people, whether that be IT or, you know, hospitality. Absolutely.
Sylvia online, she said management skills and people skills.
Yep, yep. And we're seeing sort of some similarities here. You know, anything that has to do with people, either interacting or managing, you're always going to need those people skills. Absolutely. Um, Problem solving, yes. Any industry that or field that you're in, you're going to encounter problems. That's just, you know, that's just what happens. So being able to sort of find creative solutions and work, you know, work through those problems, that can be, you know, that can be applied anywhere. Um, and you know, I really want to emphasize this point about these different transferable. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have a? Oh, okay. I really do want to emphasize these transferable skills because you know a lot of times um, folks who say they want to go into IT and aren't really sure how to start. And it can be pretty intimidating, right? You know, you hear, well, you got to learn to code, you've got to learn networking, you know, you've got all these sort of advanced cybersecurity terms, right? It can be pretty intimidating to sort of try to transition from one field to another. Um, and so, you know, the one sort of takeaway I want to make clear today, if you get nothing else, is that, you know, everyone here already has some transferable skills that they can use to get into this industry. Now, you still may need to do some training, you may need to get those technical skills, but you know, the good news is you can. You can, you know, you can get trained for that. It's these other skills that a lot of times you would already have and that you already bring to the table that are, you know, just as important in making your move. So yeah, thank you. All great examples. Any comments or questions so far? All right. So yeah, so these transferable skills are the competencies that you develop during your experiences and that you carry with you in all of your endeavors. This isn't just in the workforce, this is in life as well, right? Earlier we brought up, you know, communication. Um, is that something that, you know, you were specifically trained to do? Maybe, you know, there's public speaking classes, there's, you know, ways to write effectively, but, you know, I think it would be hard for you to sort of look back and think, yeah, this is when I learned to communicate, right? A skill like that is something that we've learned and refined throughout our entire life. And you know, and you're going to keep using it through the rest of your life. Um, you know, something so for something like coding, let's say Java, you know, that's something that you can take a class in, you can be trained in. But something like, you know, something like communication, dealing with people, problem solving, that's a little bit harder to train. You certainly can develop those skills, and we'll get into, you know, how you can kind of do that in a little bit. But you know, this is something more that you bring with you, and that you know you haven't really officially learned, if that makes sense. Officially, you know, are educated in. So, um, you know, these skills are just as important because it is, you know, while anyone can be trained to say, you know, learn Java, it's a little harder to be, you know, to be trained to work well with people. Go ahead. So because we're with the Ignite Hub today, we're focusing more on the IT side. I've got a list here of transferable skills for IT. Um, and you might notice about this list, I've kind of got it divided into two categories here. On the left side, coding, technical writing, social media management, things like network configuration, hardware deployment. Those are hard skills, right? These are things that at some point along the way, you probably learned how to do, right? In school or maybe on a job. These are again, yeah, skills that you had to be taught. And these are all, you know, these are all important skills. Any kind of IT job you're looking into, you're probably going to have to know coding or database management, networking, whatever aspect of IT you're interested in, right? So that is, you know, that is very important. And I feel like a lot of time when we talk about getting into the IT field, it's these hard skills that are emphasized. But if we look on the right side here, same list of transferable skills for IT, you know, look at this left side with the soft skills, right? Communication, organization, the ability to, you know, analyze things, being creative, right? being creative is a skill. Problem solving. This right side list, there's more, there's even more skills on it than the left side. And all of these wouldn't necessarily be something that you're taught, but no matter your background, your experience, you've probably encountered all of these experiences in your life, right? We'll break these down a little bit more. But again, communication, dealing with people, being organized, time management, that's important no matter where you are. Again, being creative, being able to problem solve and come up with different solutions, um, leadership and management, again, no matter where you are, you're dealing with people, and no matter what industry you're in, if you're trying to move up that career ladder, at some point you're going to be in a leadership role. I like the last one, especially perseverance, right? You might think, is that really a skill? Absolutely. The ability to keep going and not give up in the face of setbacks might be the most important, skill of all. So, and everyone can do that. Sure, it's tough, but we all have that ability to persevere. Keep going. All right, so let's break down some of these already. It's not an exhaustive list, but let's go a little more into some of these soft skills. So first on the list here we have listening. Again, when we think of skills, we don't often think of listening as a skill, right? That's just what we do every day. That's what you're doing now as I'm talking, right? Is that really a skill? Absolutely, right? It's one thing to sort of hear the information that I'm presenting, or maybe you're chatting with a friend. It's one thing to sort of have that conversation, but it's another to sort of be fully engaged and understand that information. We often talk about active listening, right? Not only are you hearing, but you're understanding and engaging with with someone else. It could be in person, it could be virtually, especially now. Being able to understand people is extremely important. Problem solving, pretty self-explanatory, but uh, barriers, setbacks, problems come up, and it is truly a skill to be able to find a solution to a complex situation or challenge, and and implement that solution. It can take some creativity. You may need to think outside of the box. Or sometimes it's enough to say, I don't know how to address this problem. Who does? Where do I find the resources to solve the problem if I can't do it? So again, problem solving, and related to IT, things come up all the time. Problems happen all the time, right? We talk about those bugs. So problem solving is very important. This next one, a bit like perseverance, staying positive. Again, we wouldn't normally think that that's a skill, right? This is more sort of having a positive mindset, right? These problems are going to happen, frustrations are going to come up, but more so than being able to solve the problem, how do you address that? Do you become frustrated and quit, or do you stick with it and use it as a learning experience and keep moving forward? As long as you're able to sort of keep going and keep working toward your goals, no matter what comes up, that's a skill right there, staying positive. So leadership, and leadership isn't just leading people, right? It's supporting them, it's motivating them, it's encouraging them to work toward a shared goal. Even if your title doesn't have manager or supervisor or shift leader in it, you can still be a leader, right? As long as you're helping your team, you're encouraging others, you're motivating them, that shows leadership. Even just setting a role model, doing what you need to do, what needs to be done, and showing everyone else that's how things work. That's being a leader right there. And again, it's much harder to train leadership than it is to train some of these technical skills a lot of the time. Speaking, kind of opposite of listening, but that's a skill. Again, something we do every day. But do you speak clearly? Do you are you aware of who you're talking to, and do you take steps to make sure that they understand what you're saying? If you don't understand something, do you ask questions? How do you convey that information? It can include things like body language, right? How do you come across? All of this are things to be aware of. The good news is that we all do it. We all do it every day. So while it's definitely something that can be improved, the good news is we all have this skill. Creativity, covered that, but using your imagination to come up with new ideas, not just solve problems, but think ahead and come up with new directions to work. Um, Aiming high, this kind of goes with the staying positive, but it speaks more to motivation, right? Do you set clear and tangible goals for yourself? Do you develop a plan, and then you develop a plan for achieving those goals? What kind of goals do you set, right? Do you challenge yourself? Um, and believe it or not, these kind of things do stand out to employers, right? It's a good sign if you do set challenging goals for yourself and you have a plan for doing it. Even if it's difficult, even if you're reaching outside of your comfort level, the fact that you have those goals in the first place is looks very good. And of course, teamwork, right? And especially in sort of this day and age of remote work, post pandemic, teamwork is pretty important. You may not be directly working next to someone in an office environment anymore, and that just makes it more important to sort of learn how to cooperatively work with people, and get everything done that needs to get done. Comments or questions on this? Anything that stands out to you? And I like this list especially because I think that any of us, online today or can look at this and you can probably find a few skills that you yourself can draw from this list. But yeah, does anything stand out? So yeah, I mean that is a good question, right? Um, Go ahead. Yeah.
Somebody that are so connected about themselves and about the world. But if you can train your brain for those that if you could train your brain, if you could train your brain to start to think in that positive intent, right? So as you're navigating this journey for trying to figure out what your career is going to be or just in life, sometimes it can become overwhelming. So how do I train my brain to think positive as opposed to thinking of negative outcomes? You know what? If this is going to happen, I'm going to put my all into it. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to do this. That positive thinking will then yield positive results. But what often happens with our brains is that it's easier if I ask you a question right now. If I ask you, tell me 10 positive things that have happened to you over this past month, you're probably going to struggle. If I tell me 10 negative things, you give me 20, because our brains are almost wired that way. So to start to train your brain, if you're not a person, to your point earlier, who naturally thinks positive, that means you have to train your brain to start to think in that way, build that skill set so that you're able to think more of that positive intent. And we actually do a workshop on this. It's called Positive Intent.
Yeah.
Is that good? Okay. That turns us off.
Yeah. But your point about, so absolutely, that's exactly, couldn't have said it better myself. But your point about, positive intent as a skill versus something that just everyone does, that is something I want to take a minute on. The reason that this is a skill is because, as my colleague was saying, you can train it. Sure, we're all, we all speak, we all listen, we all have certain mindsets. That's just something that we have as humans. But that those sorts of things can be changed. We can become better speakers. We can become better listeners. We can change our mindsets from sort of being negative to being positive. So that's why I would call it a skill, as well. And with the staying positive, one of my, oh, did that answer your question? Right. And one thing with the staying positive, I always like to say that it's sort of the ability, even in a difficult situation, is to sort of to see how you can learn from it, right? Even if it's frustrating, even if there's always something you can learn, whether that be big or small. Any other comments or questions?
We have a question from online, and Sylvia is asking, how can you train your brain? Are there strategies or books? And can you mention a few?
Oh, that's a great question, Sylvia. Yeah, there are definitely a lot of books out there. But one of the things that we have found that works, I think not only even just for myself, but even like when we're talking with our clients, is that positive intent, right? So every day when you get up, we have an option in life, right? We can either choose to focus on things that are negative, or we could choose to look at the things that are positive. One of the analogies I like to look at is look at the glass either half full or half empty. Mm-hmm. So how are you getting up each day? And that starts with self. So we have a series on self-mastery, self-love, self-care, and all that. You have to start with yourself. If you start to speak positive to yourself, it then reflects on the things that are happening within your life. So one, I would say, is definitely start with yourself. How are you looking at how you show up? And that's a workshop that we do. Like, how am I showing up, right? Am I showing up being positive? Am I showing up always doubting? Am I showing up always being negative? I think when you start with those aspects of self, then you can start to, there are a lot of books on like self-love. There are a lot of books on leadership, on changing mindset. I can possibly maybe put a couple of books together, and when we send out the resource at the end, I'll definitely include something for you, Sylvia, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
A very simple exercise is something like what I already mentioned, right? Write down 10 things that you're positive about, right? It's a lot of times it's a lot harder to focus on the positives than the negatives, but if you make that sort of conscious effort to focus on the positive things, that will eventually, train your brain to be more positive. Any other questions? Yeah, next one. All right, so we talked about what some of these skills are and things like that. But why are they important? Why are we spending a whole workshop on these essential skills, these transferable skills? And the truth is that these skills are valuable for any job, no matter where you are. Obviously we're focused a little more on IT today, but no matter what industry you're going to get into, you need all of these skills. The other part of it is, it means that sort of lack of experience isn't always a barrier to getting a job. As I mentioned before, a lot of folks trying to transfer into the IT field, or maybe, are just out of school and starting out, a lot of times when you look at those job descriptions, you see experience and, or experience requirements and things like that. And that can be pretty intimidating, right? How do you get the experience if you don't have it already? And that's where these transferable skills come in. Because while you may not have experience in some of the harder skills, you definitely have experience with some of these soft skills. And employers do look for that. Employers look for potential, right? Again, it's easier a lot of times for someone to be trained in the hard skills. If they they're already coming with a if they can demonstrate, some of these soft skills as well. And that's how you, and it's up to you to kind of figure out how best to demonstrate your potential in an interview or settings like that. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But having all these skills, shows your flexibility and it really can make you stand out from the crowd, right? If it's, between you and someone else, and you both have, equal set of hard skills, but maybe you have some experience doing customer service, chances are that's gonna make the difference, right? Because you already have that experience with people, whether it's relevant to to IT or not. And again, the good news is you've already developed them, just by living life and things like that. So, yeah, next slide. And so you don't just have to take my word for it, but we've got a few statistics here. So, when we talk about, generally speaking, the skills that employers report that are lacking in the workplace. So you'll notice on here, this isn't necessarily for IT specifically, but you'll notice on here that all of these are soft skills, right? 59% of employers say that time management and the ability to sort of be organized and prioritize work, that's lacking, right? That goes back to organization and time management. And everyone does that. We do that all the time. There are ways to be better at it, but everyone does that already. We talk about management and leadership. 58% of employers say that those items lack, right? How do you interact with other people? 55% say teamwork. It's harder than you think to sometimes get along with other people, especially if work together, and especially if the other person is frustrating, or maybe you don't sort of share the same share the same way of thinking. So the ability to, these are all just very people focused skills. And then 39% say problem solving was a gap, right? Are you or your team able to think creatively and find these solutions? And again, these are all things that can be improved. But these are the skills that most employers are highlighting versus any kind of hard skill. That I think this just goes to show why these transferable skills are so. Because no matter where you were before, you've had some exposure to these skills. Next slide. So we had a question about how you can improve some of these skills. So I'd like to go through that a little bit. We'll sort of go through the 8 that we already highlighted. How do you improve your listening skills, right? It's something we do, but how do we actually improve it? You can practice this in your everyday life by trying to practice active listening, right? As you're listening to someone, really think about what they're saying. Really think to yourself, do I understand this? Am I getting all the information I need? Do I understand where they're coming from? They may be saying something I disagree with, but you need to at least be able to see where they're coming from, even if you don't agree with it, right? That's active listening, and you can do that in any conversation, whether it's casual or professional. Similarly with speaking, the more you do it, the better you're going to get, right? The more sort of different types of audiences you speak with, the more you're going to improve. It's much different for me to be speaking up here in front of an audience versus a one-on-one conversation with my colleague. Both are just as important, but each takes a different type of skill.
I think also on. Okay. Also, when it comes to communication, and when you talk about listening and speaking, I think it's really important to understand that in whatever setting, like Chris said, in whatever setting we get into, we will be using these skills. How can we improve, especially on the speaking part? There's a great organization called Toastmasters. I think a lot of us have heard of Toastmasters. Toastmasters is they're national. Toastmasters teaches you how to speak in group settings, when you're doing presentations, because all of us that are here today obviously come from different backgrounds, but we also we're also preparing for where we're going for our future. So, in your next life, you may be presenting at one of your organizations for whatever it is whatever industry you're going into, or just being able just to articulate yourself when you're speaking one-on-one with your colleagues, again, in a work setting. So being able to utilize the resources that are out there. A lot of the public libraries have also started like conversation groups. That's another way to improve your public speaking. A lot of the libraries have conversation groups. So find the conversation group that's good for you. Also by joining, various associations. What are you interested in? Are you part of Black engineers? Are you part of the networking association, whatever it is? Volunteer your time at some of these associations, because they will often give you opportunities where you can learn to speak in front of people, even behind the scenes, but it gives you an opportunity. And when we talk about listening, I think listening is a skill that we often take for granted because we all think we're good listeners. But as Chris pointed out, when somebody's talking, stop thinking, right? Because we're always thinking in our heads. What is she saying? But just stop, like literally be present. And again, that goes to how you program your brain. Like sometimes you literally have to tell yourself, I would say, Kunda, stop thinking and listen to what's being said, because you're so busy thinking about maybe where you're going, what you didn't do, that you're not actively listening. So being able to really be present, and that's what people say, be present in that moment so you can really engage. If you're in a space with somebody, you look at that person, build some connection with that person so that person knows that you're there with them. Over the past couple of years, as we all know, with COVID, we've learned to engage individuals through Zoom. So when we're facilitating or we're having our sessions, you're looking into the camera, you're looking at the person so the person knows that you're there with them. So, these are skills. Again, there are a lot of resources online, but it starts with self. With all of these things that we're teaching, especially on this side, with the communication, even with the problem solving, as Chris gets into that, it's always important to look at yourself. As my friend says, the prophet Michael Jackson said, start with the man in the mirror. Mm-hmm. So you have to start with the man in the mirror. You have to look at yourself. And sometimes it's really hard for us to be critical on ourselves because, sometimes we want to tell ourselves things that are good. But if you're trying to build yourself to become that next great person, you're the person that has to tell yourself, hey, this is where I lack and this is where I need to improve. Because guess what? It doesn't matter how many assessment tests you take. You know yourself better. You know yourself better. I know myself better than anybody. I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm bad at. Now, the question is, am I being honest with myself to say, hey, I want to get to this next level? What are the skills that I need to get there? And when I look at the skills, what do I need to improve on? So this is then when you're thinking about transferable skills as well, think about what are the areas that what are the skills that I have already? How do I want to improve on them for those of us that need to improve? Like improvement is something that we all need at some point, right? We're good at things, but guess what? We can become better. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm going to address these next two kind of problem solving and creativity together. To sort of improve these types of skills, and a lot of times we think, creativity, oh, I'm a creative person, or oh, I'm not a creative person. That's false. Everyone is creative, right? You might be creative in different ways, but everyone has that spark of creativity. You just have to sort of look for opportunities to use it, both with that and problem solving. So I'm going to use an example. You can improve these doing sort of everyday tasks. Let's say I'm going to the grocery store to get the ingredients to make a pizza, right? A pepperoni pizza. I've got a plan, a recipe, right? And I get to the store and, oh no, they're out of pepperoni, right? That's a problem, very simple one, but how do I address that? Well, if they don't have pepperoni, it looks like they have sausage. Okay, I can substitute that in. That's solving that problem right there, right? But then I get to thinking, oh, I can't just have a regular sausage pizza, right? I need something a little more. What would go well with sausage? Let's say onions, let's say peppers, whatever have you. That's using creativity right there. I have this plan, but I've now found a way to, I've encountered a problem, I've sort of figured out a way around the problem, and now I've figured out a way to sort of improve things even more. So even just a simple example like that, cooking food, you have the opportunity to, both solve problems and express your creativity. The important part here is really just finding opportunities to do that, no matter how simple. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. With the interpersonal skills over here, the leadership and the teamwork, again, improving your leadership sounds, sounds complicated, but it's really the easiest way is just to be around other people, right? If you're taking part in an activity that involves other people and you're all, trying to do the same thing, that's teamwork. And the more you do it, the better you're gonna get at it. And same with leadership. Again, you don't need any sort of formal leadership training, although that is an option, certainly. But even just encouraging other people and motivating them. You don't have to be in a officially called a leader in order to exercise that leadership. It's just being around other people, taking charge, and looking for opportunities where you can take ownership of something, where you can take responsibility for something, even if you're not asked to or assigned to. And then, of course, we've covered sort of the staying positive and aiming high. But I do just want to reiterate that, trying to, so for the staying positive, trying to see setbacks as a learning opportunity. No matter what happens, there's always something you can take away from it, for the better, even if it's how not to do this the next time. With aiming high, I would say the big thing here is getting out of your comfort zone, trying something new. You may not be, it's not going to be comfortable. You may not be very good at it, but again, the more you do it, the more you're going to improve. And it gets you, eventually you do get comfortable, right? So set challenging goals for yourself, even if it seems like, you may not be able to attain them right away. Keep working at them, keep aiming, don't settle. And that's, that will change your mindset over time. Does that make sense? Comments or questions on any of this? Okay, keep going. All right, so we talked about all these transferable skills and why they're important and so on. So you've got these skills, you've been improving your speaking, your listening, your creativity. How do you actually highlight them, right? You're going for a job, you're trying to move into the IT field. How do you actually get yourself noticed? And there are a few tips here. As my colleague was saying, the first step is identifying what skills you have, whether that's through an assessment or journaling, however that is. You have to know what you bring to the table, and where you need to improve as well. You get a couple opportunities throughout the job search process to emphasize your transferable skills. The first part would be the initial application. So on a resume or a cover letter, you can include a skills section, and you can absolutely include these transferable skills in your resume and cover letter. And the cover letter especially gives you a good opportunity to provide some more detail and really provide information about how you've used these transferable skills, these soft skills, in the workplace. Another one would be, you don't necessarily need to focus when you're looking for work, and we'll use IT, the IT industry here, as an example. It's often helpful to not focus solely on job titles. You want to make sure that you read and understand the full job description and really understand what they're asking. So for instance, let's say you worked at a call center or, sales job, something like that. Try to get into IT. You look at a job that says help desk analyst. Well, that might sound intimidating, right? That means I have to be good at networking. That means I have to be, I have to know coding. Ooh, I don't know if I should apply for that. But if you were to read the description, I would bet that a lot of this help desk job is actually customer service, right? It's not so much important that you have all the technical skills. You can find that out. There are resources there to help you. But the fact, most of it's going to be dealing with people and making a good impression to the customers. And if you come from that sales or call center background, you might be in pretty good shape to actually apply for this job. So, the job titles can be misleading. Make sure you read the job description and really look at where your experience is similar and where it can fit in. And then make sure that's reflected in the resume and the cover letter. You want to make sure that you highlight all of your relevant experience. again, it can be intimidating when they say, we need X amount of technical skills or experience in the field. But, even stuff that seems irrelevant may be relevant. Again, the sort of sales to IT would be a good example, right? You've got that customer service experience. So make sure you highlight that and give examples. If you're in a call center, maybe you made 100 calls a day, something like that would be a great, a very positive point for this help desk job. Make sure you include all that. And this can even include things like volunteer experience and things like that as well. Even if it's not paid work, any sort of community extracurricular activities, that's all relevant. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to piggyback on that, I think on the section where it says give yourself credit and include all your relevant experience, I think a lot of us underestimate and undersell ourselves. We don't realize what we're actually doing at work. So what I would encourage all of you who are currently working right now, no matter where you're working, take the time to sit down and actually write down for yourself, what do I do every day? You will be amazed that what the job description they gave you when you first started to what you're doing is very different. And it's important to kind of track these things, because when you are looking at different jobs that become available, you start to see, oh, wait a minute, I actually have done this and I do this. It may not be part of my job description, right? But I've been doing this maybe 3 or 4 times in a month. They have me going to sit on or in a meeting for senior execs or whatever it is. It's not my job title, but I'm often asked to go in. I'm often asked to substitute for this person, or when new people come on board, somehow I find myself training them. I'm not the manager, but somehow they say, oh, you're really good with people. All those skills, you start to write them down. And those are the things that when it's time for you to look for work, when it's time for you to advance in your current position, those are the things that you will put together and say, okay, wait a minute, I'm actually doing these things. And I actually have these skills that they're asking for. And going back to the resume and the cover letter, sometimes that's when you're able to add those things into your resume and in your cover letter as well. Because a lot of us, believe me, are doing so much more at work than we give ourselves credit for. And that's where it says give yourself credit. Don't undersell yourself. And don't oversell yourself. Sometimes people tend to put false things in their resumes and stuff like that. That's not what we're saying. But really take this time to self-analyze yourself and see, what do I do at work every day? I'm telling you, if you all take that, just do that assignment, you will surprise yourself. Or even, what did I do at my previous job if you're currently not working? What were some of the things that I actually did that are not on my job description? You'll be surprised. And those are some of the skills that will help you as you're looking for where you're trying to go. Okay?
Adding to what you're saying, that also I usually recommend students to add the results, right?
Yes.
Percentage, numbers, time frame, and dollar value. So when you selling yourself in a resume, so when you're describing your experience and the skills, add values to this, like results. So employers like to see how you can give results, right? So that's just adding to what you said.
That is true.
Yeah. Yeah. And, even extracurricular things like sports demonstrate teamwork. So, really give yourself credit and be honest. You've done more than you think you have. And the other thing is, part of what's important here is not even so much that you have the skills. No one's an expert in everything, but that you sort of show that you're always trying to learn and that you're continually improving. Sure, it's great that you're good at something, but you can always be better. Sure, you might be weak in something, but you can take steps to get better. And having that sort of growth mindset and that curiosity, that hunger to learn, that does make an impression on employers. Yeah, go ahead.
With that being said, I mean, definitely looking at the resources that are available. So for example, at Montgomery College, you guys have an amazing workforce development team, and they offer so many certificate courses that you all can take that can help you. There's that leadership, there's a business and leadership department. There's so many courses. So sometimes it's about maybe taking a course, through the college, or going online. There are a lot of free resources. Coursera has courses, Udemy, Allison.com has courses. So these are courses you could take for leadership. And I'm assuming that most of us are on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has LinkedIn Learning. So I know that I believe you have to get access through that. I think it's a paid feature, but if you have a public library card, Montgomery County Public Library, if you go onto their website, they actually have resources, and one of them is LinkedIn Learning through the public library. So yes, absolutely, and it's free. So I encourage you to go to Montgomery Public Library website, and then if you go on there, if you don't have a library card, you can get a digital one. They'll give it one to you online, and if you have one, go onto their LinkedIn Learn, and they have a lot of learning resources there. So it's a great way to, continuously work at improving ourselves. We're not perfect individuals, but guess what? We can get as perfect as we want to be, depending on how much we put into what we're trying to do for ourselves, right? You have to work at it every day. Every day that you get up should be an opportunity to ask yourself, what am I going to do better? What do I want to improve on? What do I want to change? Because there's some things we don't want to do anymore. So you know what? I'm tired of doing things that way. How am I going to do things better? What do I want to learn? So every day, 365 days in a year, guess what? 365 opportunities for you to get better at whatever it is you want for your life. Okay?
Absolutely. So with that, we're gonna, I couldn't have left off on a better note. I do want to open up for any questions or comments as we start to wrap up here. But hopefully this was all, helpful information, and yeah.
I do have a question and comment. I think we have talked about learning, but I would like to hear your opinion of own learning when you are trying to improve that skill set, because due to our upbringing, there are certain things that we need to unlearn. So
yeah, that is a good point. And I think that a lot of us culture, all these different things, there's so many things that we have grown up knowing that we think are right for us. We have to one of the first things is taking that self-assessment and asking yourself, okay, if I've been doing this for this particular amount of time, how is this working for me? And if it's not, you have to be gentle with yourself, because if we're been taught certain things from childhood, some behaviors, right? Some of these behaviors, these learned behaviors from childhood, stopping abruptly doesn't really help us, because it only causes us to go back to where we were before. But if you start to take the time and say to yourself, okay, give me an example. Give me an example.
For example, I am a Gen Xer, and as you know, people of my generation, we are fiercely individualistic. So sometimes working in groups it's because we just want to do everything ourselves. So sometimes I have to unlearn that. I had to unlearn and allow other people to do other stuff and to contribute in different ways to a project.
Okay, that's a good one. So one of the first things to do is really being able to step back and ask yourself, when I do everything on my own, am I stressing myself out? Yeah. How stressed do I get, right? And if you, yes, as you've said, then you say, well, you know what? I have 4 other people in the room with me. I need to trust, because the trusting, right? I need to trust that my coworkers can help me with this. So you start by small delegation. All right, I'll have this person do this, because it's a trusting with you as well, right? Oh, so I will start by giving these people maybe a small task. The person finishes it. Okay, all right, I feel a little more comfortable. And then you start moving on, because that's what I'm saying. We can't take that big chunk and think it's going to happen overnight. Like, it's not, because if you give me a task without really feeling that you're comfortable with passing it on to me, then you start to stress out. anxiety kicks in and stuff like that. But if we're doing it slowly, step by step, then you're relinquishing that hold, but you're also building trust with those that are around you, and you're learning to delegate. So that is a good example. And I think that's something with a lot of us, right? A lot of us have control. We want to control everything. But what good does it do if you're up all night working on a project, you're not sleeping, if it's one of those projects which takes weekends, you're not spending time with your loved ones, is it worth it? But I actually have people around me who can help me. And when you're working, one of the things I love about this generation now in the workspace is that it's multi-generational, right? So you have so many different generations that are working, and everybody's coming with skill sets. But the key is learning to appreciate everybody at the table. So I know what I know because I've been doing this for a long time, but you know what? I want to listen to what you have to say because I know that your approach is going to be different from mine, and it gives me an opportunity to learn. If you're a lifelong learner, you learn to step back, right? And say, okay, I know I could do it this way, but you know what? Let me ask this young man on my team to see how he would do it. And it's also giving me an opportunity to learn from this individual, right? Did that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. And we do have a question online, and this is Sylvia again, and she just wanted to verify that the course that you talked about earlier is called Self-Mastery.
Yeah, so there is a self-mastery series, Sylvia, and it consists of self-love, self-care, how to say, like there's self-esteem, self-confidence. There's a whole lot of stuff under self-mastery. And Career Catchers actually on Tuesdays, we have what we call our empowerment, and we have done like the self-mastery. So we have different workshops around that. But there's resources that you can get online. If you want, I can also include that in what I'm sending you for the books for positive thinking. So I will look for that for you, okay?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you so much to both of you for this wonderful presentation. I think that this is really super important. These transferable skills are showing more and more in job postings. And again, we all have them. We have to recognize them. We have to nurture them, and we have to improve them. So thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. And any other questions? Otherwise, we want to thank Career Catchers again for being here and to remind all of our audience that we are now offering also office hours here at the hub with the Career Catchers. So if you need more information, let us know. And thank you for taking your time, for taking the time to be with us today. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
To stop the recording and all right. Thank you so much.